Let's talk about survival signal number 4, right, from The Gift of Fear. It's called typecasting. This one. What this strategy does, it's when you label someone in a slightly critical way, and then they want to disprove you, okay, of your opinion not being accurate. So this is like when you give it says here, it involves a slight insult, and it's usually one that's easily refuted. So it's like, like someone comes to you and they kind of hit on you, like, oh, let me buy you a drink, and you're like, no, I don't want a drink, and they're like, you don't have to be a bitch about it.
Yeah.
And then we feel inclined to be like, I'm not a bitch, fine, give me the drink.
Yeah.
What this does, it actually tells the other person that you're not sure, and then you give control to them. So if a dog trainer comes to you, for example, right, and says like, and this is I will be very honest, a lot of dog trainers can use this to manipulate you to train the way they want you to train. They'll go, you're being cruel. That is typecasting right there, because you don't know the person, and you go, well, you're being cruel, and then you obviously will go, I'm not cruel.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm not cruel, and then they go, but you use this tool, don't you? And you go, yes, I do. And it's like, but that's being cruel, because science says it's better to use positive reinforcement to create behavior.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, I agree, but science also says to weaken a behavior, it's better to punish.
Yeah.
That's what it says. Yeah, but punishment is cruel. That's called typecasting. Okay, so it is a manipulation technique.
Yes.
For other people, we say, you're a doormat. You're letting your dog run the show, and it's not healthy. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can still use it. I still use this technique, but what is my intention?
So you use this technique?
Of course we
Yeah.
do. All of us use this, but again, it's all about the intent. So Gavin here talks about, again, like that predatory criminal that has very bad intent.
Yeah.
Like in this example, the guy used it saying, there is such a thing as too much pride, and the lady was like, okay, you can carry my groceries to my apartment, and then the guy turned out to be very bad. Okay, so typecasting is something that a lot of, like, if you listen to the way the dog trainer speaks, you will pick this up very quickly, whether they're doing it for you or them. And I'm going to point something out here. People who are dominantly, like, use dominance-based training, people who do use punishment-only training to create behavior. I'm not talking about stopping behavior. Remind me to talk about that in a second.
Okay.
They don't really care much for the dog's well-being. They care only for the humans. However, the opposite spectrum, who use positive only about, like, no, you shouldn't be cruel, you shouldn't use punishment, you shouldn't use this and that, they are the opposite. They primarily care mostly for the dog's well-being, but they usually don't care about how it affects the owner.
Yeah. Okay.
Because these are the people that are like, you shouldn't use a prong collar for pulling. And it's like, the owner's like, this dog's ripping my arm off.
So what's an example of, like, a way that you would use typecasting to...
I look at where is the person super unbalanced, and then try and balance them out. So if it's someone who's using dominant techniques, for example, then I'm like, if you want to create behavior and if you want positivity, you should be doing this. If it's someone who's only using positive stuff and they have a bit of a brat, then it's like, this dog needs to be balanced out.
Yeah.
That's like saying to me, like, oh, I like sweet tea and I give you really bitter tea. What do? Well, I add sugar. But if it's already sweet, are you going to add more sugar? No, of course not. That's weird. So Einstein that says, like, if you use the same thing over and over again and expect different results, you're insane.
Yeah.
So that's how I use typecasting. I help to balance them out. I don't try and manipulate them into doing the way I want to do it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say about the dominance training thing is, when with humans this works. So if I say to a child, you have to do your homework, or I'm going to take your, or I'm going to give you a smack, and the child doesn't, I give him a smack. So later on they decide, I'm going to avoid getting the smack, so I'll do the homework. sometimes people perceive this to say, oh, see, punishments makes you do something. No, it doesn't. It makes you weaken something. But if there's an alternative behavior, you'll take that. So often people
Wait,
who...
can you say that again, please?
Well, often people who use punishment.
Yes.
So for example, I want my dog to sit.
Yes.
Okay. So he doesn't want to sit, so I give him a crank on the leash and then he sits. Can perceive that because I punished him, I made him sit.
A behavior. Yes.
Yeah. It's not true.
No.
What I did is I said sit, but I punished the stand. So instead of the stand, the dog does the sit. That's the thing. So someone who says, no, rewards create behaviors, it's true.
Yes.
Punishment doesn't create behaviors, it stops behaviors.
So you're stopping the behavior that you don't want and then giving an alternative.
Correct. All right, see this little street? You can just turn in the left there and then left. And that's a little detail that a lot of people misinterpret.
Yes.